Now, seeing as this has a rather thin burr walnut veneer on the headstock, it's going to be relatively easy to cut this cavity. You take the cuts you've already made and very gently and very carefully follow them and make them deeper. There is a trick here. If you have a blade that is fairly pointy like this and you hold it at that sort of an angle, it's likely to follow the grain. If you hold it at a low angle, it's likely to follow the cut, the small cut that you've already made with little effort. Another thing you'll see that I'm holding the blade with as many fingers as I can possibly get onto it. I've got 4 fingers onto the knife and my hand is holding the piece. My elbow is also on the neck of the guitar. It's like rock climbing. You want to have as many points of contact as possible in order to keep you as stable as possible so you don't screw up your inlay. The veneer should come away fairly easily. Okay, so on a veneered headstock you can get into the glue line, and depending on the glue it will just come away like that. If you are inlaying into a solid headstock, a different method is required. It's called cut to cut. So you make your outline cut and make sure that's nice and deep, and then using your chisel at an angle you very carefully cut away until you get to the bottom of your first cut, and that's why it's called cut to cut. So effectively you've created an angle there, and once you've got that on both sides you come back and without danger you are able to remove the excess material in the middle. You have to watch our other videos on sharpening chisels. If your chisel is not absolutely razor sharp at this point, you are likely to have to put too much pressure on it to get any results, and you are then more likely to slip and mess up all of your hard work. So we've now got our cuts on both sides, and you then go in with your chisel and remove the middle material. In this case we can see the zebrano and a little bit of the bubinga that this neck is made out of. This little section here, it's too narrow, so I'm using a much smaller, gorgeous little chisel. This is me being naughty. You should not ever point a chisel towards yourself. You've got less control, but the camera's in my way. So that gives me is almost perfect. Not quite deep enough. It's just slightly, the inlay is slightly thicker than the veneer is, so I'm going to want to remove a little bit of the underlying wood as well. If at all possible, you should cut from the corner in to the inside of the inlay. You don't want to slip and cut away. Right now I'm just cleaning up the edges. I've recessed the cavity as much as I think it needs to be recessed, and it just needs a trifle of tidying up. And that fits perfectly. Okay, the inlay is perfectly seated in there. I'll take that out. I'm going to be using standard super glue. Well, I say standard, high viscosity, thick super glue. You can, if you so desire, stain this black, but I'm a little bit more sophisticated than that, he says arrogantly. I apologize. Okay, so yes, super glue in the bottom of your cavity. Something to be very, 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 very aware of is the fact that if you've got a very, very tight cavity, super glue is likely to splurge out at speed. So you definitely have to put goggles on. It's rather important. In fact, if I could put goggles on my camera, I would do so. So, you've got your super glue in the bottom, and you are seating your inlay. Another little trick is super glue does not stick to plastic, so if you want to hold it down, if you need to hold it down, or if you need to push any part of your inlay in because the cavity is too tight, use the top of your super glue pot. Now that is sitting there quite nicely and isn't going to move. We'll leave the super glue to cure. You'll notice that I didn't put too much in. We still have the little gap that we created, and that is exactly what I require for now. I have a rather unorthodox hobby in that I collect dust from different species of wood, and that comes in handy making villas, as I think the Japanese say, in glue and dust I place my trust. This is tight bond, and I'm making a walnut filler. Somewhat, probably too much glue there. Let's see. Now obviously the headstock veneer that we inlaid into is burr walnut. And if we were using standard black filler, it would just be, well, obvious that there was filler there. We want it to be less obvious. So we've mixed up a nice, fairly thick mixture of walnut dust and tight bond, and it matches very nicely the veneer. So we use these plastic credit card blanks, I suppose they are. I buy them on eBay, and squeeze the filler down the gaps. As you can see, the filler has shrunk as predicted. The time has come to remove the excess After filing away the bulk of the excess filler, we move on to various grades of sandpaper. This is the scary bit. If you have not glued in your inlay deep enough, or if the inlay material itself was not thick enough, you could sand through the inlay, and in this case I could sand through, conceivably, the veneer on the headstock as well, which isn't something that you want to do. After sanding to about 240 grit, we're reaching the final stages of this inlay. Engraving and inlay work go hand in hand a lot of the time. With this one, it's very simple. I'm just using a good old scalpel to delineate the letters. There are better, or specialist at least, tools for doing engraving work, but for doing straight line like this, I feel more comfortable with a scalpel blade. For more interesting work, you end up playing with things like this. Different size, different shapes, used for different things. But we won't need those today. And here we have the final inlay. And you have seen the basics of how I do simple inlay work. There are other methods out there, and it gets much more interesting when you add more complexity. Although I must say, with stuff like this tribal inlay, also in solid silver, the fact that it's got lots of curves and it's a custom design actually makes it easier. Installing rectangles or polygons, etc., that sort of thing, where it has to be absolutely regular and exact and precise, is rather difficult. And then of course you start playing around with adding in secondary materials, a combination of brass and mother of pearl, or whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Please share with all your friends and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've got many more videos up here. Follow an entire build start to finish, and yes, watch us build custom guitars, learn how to do it, or you can see demos of other completed instruments. And yes, I shall stop noodling. Thanks very much for following. Bye.